Nai, Mama is about to put to bed, shouted Onyinye as she ran towards her father. Emeka, Onyinye's father, turned around and shouted at her. Is that why you are coming here to disturb me? Go and call the midwives, Emeka said. But Papa, the midwife sent me here. They said that if Mama is not taken to the hospital immediately, she will die, Onyinye said. Well, then there's nothing anyone can do about it, Emeka said, taking up his hoe and returning to tilling the ground. Go and tell them that I have no money, Emeka said without any remorse. But Papa, before the child Onyinye could finish her sentence, this useless child, will you get out of here before I descend on you? Emeka shouted. Onyinye lifted her hands in defiance as Emeka tried to give her a slap. She would have persisted longer, but she knew the kind of man her father was. Emeka was born into a very poor family, and he was an only child. All his life he lived in poverty until he became a young man. He started farming both goats and vegetables. He began seeing money from what he sold. Due to Emeka's fear of poverty, he never spent any of the money he was making for the fear of losing it. His children would not have gone to school if not for the government school in the village. When Emeka got home, he saw his in-laws. Mama, Papa, welcome o. Why are you people here so late? Emeka said, entering into his mud house. His house was the only mud house in the village. Your wife, Nkechi, almost died during childbirth, Nkechi's father said. How could you be so heartless? Nkechi's mother added. Mama, Papa, how can you be saying such a thing? I already knew my wife will not die. Nkechi's father shook his head in much regret. They had warned their daughter against marrying Emeka, but she insisted. Now look at the state of her life. They had come and taken their daughter to the hospital, and according to the doctor, they were right on time. They knew that every advice they were giving to Emeka fell on deaf ears, so they both left in anger. One night, few days after the birth of his last child, in the thick of the night, Emeka stepped out of his house when he was sure everyone was asleep. He started digging a hole at the back of his house, and he buried something inside that hole. Just as he was about to round up, he heard a sound. He quickly turned and saw nothing, so he felt it must have probably been the wind or some animal. The next day, Emeka's son came to him. Papa, this thing you're doing is not good though. You're not allowing us further our education, and you're not willing to support us with our businesses. Emeka's first son, Ebube, said to his father. Did my own father support me in any way? Yes, look out what I've done for myself. I am not supporting anybody. Once you're done with secondary school, you figure yourself out, Emeka said to his son. Emeka had refused to support his family in any way financially. Even the food they eat must be produced from the farm. Emeka's children hated him. Even the secondary school they went to was their mother that provided all the textbooks and other school materials they needed. Their father never supported them in any way. Ebube stormed out in anger. One day, as Emeka went about his usual business, while he was trying to cross the road, he got hit by a bikeman. The accident affected his leg. When people came out to take him to the hospital, he insisted that he be taken home because he did not want to spend money in the hospital. They took him home. He told his wife Nkechi to tend to his wounds. Nai, this your wound is too much, and I am not a doctor. You really need to go to the hospital, Nkechi said. You are such a lazy woman, Emeka said spitefully. Who asked for your advice? Will you get up and clean up my wound before I descend on you? Emeka said angrily. Nkechi was afraid of her husband, so she did as he had said. Days passed, and Emeka's legs were not getting any better. In fact, they were beginning to smell, and Emeka could not walk anymore. The bone in his leg had gone, and there were worms coming out of his decaying legs. Nobody could bear to stay in the same room as him. One day, Nkechi said to her husband, Emeka, why are you so wicked to yourself? You are obviously losing your leg and you are doing nothing about it. I thought you were mistreating me and our kids because you did not love me. But now I can see that you are obviously under a curse. Emeka looked miserably at her. It's you and your entire family that are under a curse, Emeka said, biting his lips for he was in great pain. Well, I have come to tell you that it's either you go to the hospital for treatment or I will take our children and go back to my father's house. And this time, I am not coming back, Nkechi said. Emeka shook his head slightly and tried lifting himself up from the floor. And before Nkechi could rush to help him, he fell down and fainted. Nkechi shouted and screamed for help at the top of her voice. She feared she might have lost her husband. Immediately, Emeka was rushed to the hospital. When they got to the hospital, Emeka regained consciousness for about 15 minutes before he went into coma. He called his family together and apologized to them for his selfishness. He told them where he hid his money outside the house, but before he could finish everything he wanted to say, he lost consciousness again. Emeka's son, Ebube, was there when this happened, so he quickly rushed home. When he got home, he noticed the location his father talked about seemed to be freshly dug. When he started digging, he found out that the money was gone. Ebube was devastated. The doctor had given him an hour to come back to the hospital and it was already about 45 minutes. He remembered that his mother had once told him of her suspecting his father is doing some diabolical work because he was always doing something under the bed. Ebube had always wanted to check out his mother's suspicion, but he never got a chance. He ran to his parents' bedroom, moved their bed and noticed some place looked odd. He used his hand to do a little digging and he found bundles of money in a bag. By the time he found the money, it was already too late. Ebube still rushed back to the hospital and he saw his mother sitting outside. Mama, what happened? Ebube asked. It's your father. Ebube felt his breath leave until he heard he's now being operated on. Your uncle brought money for his surgery, Nkechi said. Uncle Ekene? Ebube asked. Where did he get that kind of money from? Is this the time to ask where someone got his money from? By the way, what took you so long? Nkechi asked Ebube. Before Ebube could answer, his uncle Ekene came out and told them that their father's health was now stable. He also gave them some money for their upkeep. Few weeks later, Emeka was back and he was full of regrets. The money he worked for all his life was gone and he now has just one leg, all because of his stinginess. He called his family together and apologized to them again for how bad he had treated them in the time past. His wife and children forgave him. Ekene gave Emeka's 4 children scholarship to go to the university. He opened a newspaper store for his brother and a foodstuff store for Emeka's wife. Emeka suspected his brother was the culprit, but he could not say a word because it was all his fault and he did not catch his brother in the act. It is better to give than to receive. Proverbs 11:24-26 says, There is he that scattereth, and yet increaseth, and there is he that withholdeth more than is meet, but it tendeth to poverty. So give when you can. You don't have to have it all to give, but the little you have, you can give from it. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I would also love to hear your comments if you enjoyed the story. See you next time. Thank you.